So I feel like this is going to be a continuous thing, and unless you guys lose this upcoming weekend, but we feel like if we started off the show talking about the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Eagles every single week, and this week is going to be no different. We're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about, and we're going to kick off the show talking about the Green Bay versus 49ers game. And then we're going to kind of segue directly into the Green Bay offseason outlook. But I want you to really take the rungs on this one because you are our resident Niners fan. So what did you see from this heart-pounding, adrenaline-inducing game of this past weekend?
I'm gonna make it very simple. I don't know if you saw my guy George Kittle on the Pat McAfee show, but very simply, go Pack, go the fuck home, because that I predicted on this podcast live 41-20, and for those who watched the game, it was not 41-20. Matter of fact, it looked like for a little bit the 49ers were on the bad end of a blowout headed their way. So I think. I think that we can be very lucky that Brock Purdy plays in the NFC and he's not going to have to play at Arrowhead Stadium in December or January or anything like that in the future, because very clearly he doesn't have the physical capabilities for that type of game when the rain and the wind is going. But guess what? The 49ers play in California. The Super Bowl's in a dome, and there's not a ton of those games that are going to be put in front of him. And if it's one or two a year.
He locked in though, right? I mean, completed 6 of his final 7 passes, and then even added 9 yards grab on that. Yeah, I did. I mean,
Brandon Ayuk made 2 amazing catches on two badly thrown balls, but you know what? George Kittle dropped the ball, so it's to give a review. I'll give you a 49ers optimist review, just because that's what the people tune in for, is to watch the 49er fan make fun of the Cowboys fan, right? The offense was terrible.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan was terrible. We came out of halftime and we ran a handoff to Juwan Jennings because Juwan Jennings was playing Deebo Samuel's position. And we weren't smart enough on the first fucking play out of halftime to make sure that we have things correct. But on the flip side with the defense, obviously 2 massive interceptions by Dre Greenlaw. Running around thinking he was prime time, Deion Sanders, after the picks aside. Jordan Love and the Packers made it down the field a couple times. One time on a 56-yard run, which if you take that 56-yard run away from Aaron Jones, which I know you can't, but if you take it away, he averaged 3.1 yards per carry. Jordan Love didn't throw for over 200 yards. I know someone was rooting for him to get 300. He didn't get there. They got down the field one time on a massive kick return, which, for God's sakes, you drafted this kid. He can kick it out of the back of the end zone. Why we're trying to do this cute shit where we kick it up in the air to the 3-yard line and try to tackle him short? Just kick it out of the back of the end zone. 10 years ago when Kyle Williams kept fumbling punts all over the place, I was like, Harbaugh, don't put a punt returner back there, bro. Just let the ball bounce wherever the hell it's going to go. Don't let it kick the kick out of the back of the end zone. Then they can't return it for 70 yards and score right away. Another one of their scoring drives is against the 49ers all year. A really good strategy is find out who Ambry Thomas is covering and huck it deep, because he's going to have pass interference. So realistically, on the offensive side of the things, now everybody knows I think Jordan Love is a baller.
Yeah,
he has a huge boost in front of him. But it was a lot of kick return for 70 yards, one big run by Aaron Jones, and then a couple pass interference penalties is where they got all their points from. So defensively, I'm okay. Our run defense is trash. Chase Young is trash. Like, he's not getting paid this offseason. That dude can't set the edge to save his life.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard the name Randy Beal, but both Chase Young and Randy Gregory got benched in that game for Randy Beal to come in and set the edge, because he was the only – it's funny, the highlights are playing in front of me, and Chase Young's getting pushed around by the Ravens on a Ravens review. So, that dude is – you could see why he got traded. He's not it. Cleveland Farrell set the edge really good for us all year. But you know what? The fact of the matter is we pay that defensive line way too much money to not show up. So this week, against a really good running game and some dynamic runners, they need to show the hell up. They need to set the edge. We play the wide 9. Yeah. Can't get outside of the wide 9. How does that make sense to you? Chase Young is diving into the interior. Anyways, I'm not going to make a 2 hour.
I think one of the positives you could at least, outside of obviously, winning the game, but the Niners were previously 0-31 when down 5 points or more in the fourth quarter in the Kyle Shanahan era. And they finally got their very first win in that. So that's 2017 was the last time that happened with you guys. So coming from behind in the fourth, again, 5 points or more, never happened in the Kyle Shanahan era, and this was the first time. So if you're going to do that at any time, now is the time to do it, because if you could do it once, hopefully you could do it very, very relatively soon again. I think the thing to take away, if we're looking at it from the Green Bay angle, is one, you obviously played a pretty damn good game against the number one seed in the NFC. And as good as Jordan Love has been this entire last 7-8 weeks of the season, including playoffs, his inexperience kind of showed on especially that last throw.
Yeah,
Not
you
only
can't
did Dre
scramble
Greenlaw,
across your body on first down and huck a pick to the middle of the field. It cannot happen.
And it's not even just the Dre Greenlaw being there. It was in like double coverage as well. You have two Niners plus Dre Greenlaw a little bit in front on top of that. So damn near triple covered at that point. It shows a little bit of the inexperience, but for Jordan Love to be that good, beat the 2 seed, almost beat the 1 seed, and they're not supposed to be there, right? They're supposed to be in rebuilding mode. This was supposed to be like a test season from Jordan Love. This wasn't supposed to be a go to the playoffs and defy expectations and odds. But they did that. So if you're a Packers fan, you should be standing proud. They are strong. At the end of the day, I think that's what you take out of it from the Packers side of it. And
Yeah,
looking at their – oh, go ahead.
I just think that with their offense, they have so many wide receivers that had more than 45 targets this year. You know, Charvarius Ward, okay, guard this guy. All right, Diamador Lenore, go guard this guy. Okay, well, the other two guys might be the feature of the game plan. So for their future outlook, they have 3 or 4 guys that might go for a touchdown and 150 yards every single week. I think that's why they did so well against the Cowboys, because you don't know who you can key into this upcoming week. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown and it's Laporta. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Jameson is fast, but he hasn't done anything. Realistically, it's Amon-Ra and it's the tight end. With the Packers, Absolutely. It's like, well, you got Aaron Jones, you got 4 wide receivers, you got a tight end. It's very, very, very dynamic.
Yeah, they were saying on the broadcast that a different Packers wide receiver led them in, yards? I think it was, in every single month of this season. So there wasn't the same leading wide receiver in any of the months of this past season. So,
well, in 4 straight 100-yard receiving games by 4 different players. That's got to be. It's been a long time since that's happened, I imagine.
Oh yeah, for sure. Looking at the Packers and their offseason outlook, I think it looks pretty good. You do have a couple of free agents. A.J. Dillon, which I think could be a pretty easy walk, just because even when he is on the field, when he is getting that starter role away from Aaron Jones, because I believe it was this year, or was it last year, that Aaron Jones missed some time and A.J. Dillon just did not look great. Wasn't
2
that
yards
impressive.
A carry, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Jonathan Owens and Darnell Savage, some safeties in there. John Runyon, I believe it's their right guard. So a couple of free agents that they might want to take a look at to re-sign. They only have $8.4 million in cap space. Look at David Bakhtiari as a pretty easy and big cut candidate. He's only played 13 games of the last 3 seasons. Releasing him would free up $20.9 million in cap space post June 1st. And then don't be surprised, because this team is so young. I mean, we're talking about the youngest offense in the league, the youngest team in the playoffs. Don't be surprised to go out and see the Packers get aggressive. Maybe they want to move up in the draft. If you release David Bakhtiari and you want to go replace him, maybe you're moving up in the draft to go take that top tackle, Joe Alt. And I know there's another one. You want to go move up in that region to go grab the top tackle. Don't be surprised if the Packers actually do that. Again, draft capital is really, really valuable. But when your team is so young and you're going to end up potentially saving up 20.9 in cap space, so you're looking around 30 million in cap, again, super young, might be looking at a trade up scenario for the draft.
That's assuming they don't spend it all on extending Mr. Love.
Yeah, which will be, I mean, it could be this offseason, right? I mean, because next season was technically when he
If
would be
I
up.
was him, I would be getting extended this season. Because let's be honest, he's had 8 good games in his career. He put a hell of an 8 games on tape, but I would get extended quick and fast, even if it's not as big as it could be, to secure the bag, because it looks like it's for real, but
Yeah.
it's only been 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, no, that's true. And even if he does get signed, I would imagine that he's not going to take but a ton of cap space this season, or like this coming season, or the season after that. I believe it's probably most likely going to be more backloaded, the front loaded, just because their cap, again, it would be somewhere around 29 million ish with David Bakhtiari getting cut. But is Jordan Love getting paid $30 million a year?
Well, even if he is, they'd be smart to do an extension after his contract is up to add years to that, and then his cap hit will be super, super small. You just give him all the money up front. I think Josh Allen's cap hit has been in the mid-teens the past couple of years. So if you're smart enough and you put the money up front, not every team has a $59.5 million cap hit for their semi-decent quarterback next season like the Cowboys do. So if you're smart enough to work around it, you can.
All right, man. Chill out.
It's true. With a 59.5, that's his cap hit next season. You guys have to extend him because you can't have that cap hit. So
yeah, especially with all the guys you got to sign too on top of that. All right, no Cowboy talk. We're moving on.
All right, we're moving on.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about the Buffalo versus Kansas City game. And then once again, we're going to go ahead and shoehorn in the Buffalo offseason outlook. And then once we're done with this section, we're going to look at the other 2 losers of the divisional round. 6 straight season Kansas City Chiefs are heading to the AFC Championship game. So that's 6 seasons, 6 AFC Championships for Patrick Mahomes. It's like Tom Brady numbers right there already. This is the 3rd time that Kansas City is able to take down Josh Allen and the Bills in the postseason. And once again, it's another heartbreaker for Buffalo. I mean, I feel like we've watched this story before. Instead of it being a 13-second drive, we're looking at a wide right field goal, right? And as dynamic and as fun as the game was, at the very end of the game, Kansas City's defense is what held them down, forcing a turnover on downs, 3 and out, and then a missed field goal on top of that for their final 3 drives. It's not a great look. I don't know whose shoulder you really put that on, because Kansas City's defense is technically rated up in the top 5 for a lot of categories. So do you want to put that on Josh Allen, or you want to put that on how good the Kansas City defense is potentially going to be holding them up this postseason? That's kind of up to you. But what do you do about Josh Allen, man? I mean, he's obviously a really good quarterback. Man's cap hit is going to be $67 million, if I remember right when I was looking at it. It's something ridiculous. They're going to be like $43 million over the cap this next season. They clearly were going like all in. This is the season. We're going to win this year, and then we're going to deal with it all later. Almost like Rams type-esque, only still having their draft picks. That's kind of the difference there. But $67 million is a lot for a quarterback, regardless of who you are, and a quarterback that is not winning you or taking you to the championship game is kind of a lot at this point. So what do you think about the game, 1, which some people might call the game of the postseason, and then 2, what do you do with Josh Allen?
Starting off at number 2, you restructure, you extend, you move on. You're not moving off at Josh Allen. I don't even really think the loss was his fault. I think they're going to move off of Stephon Diggs. They might be a team to keep a lookout for on the T. Higgins, the Mike Evans, the Brandon Ayuk trade, something like that. Because speaking of family members tweeting up a storm, Trayvon has been very, very outspoken in the past about getting Stephon off of that team. And I don't really believe, no matter whose brother says my thoughts are my own, I think when people's family members start popping off on social media, that comes from internal discussions. So probably moving off of Stefon Diggs.
That would save them 19 million this season or the next season, excuse me. So just trading them would save them 19 million.
I think they got to find. You know, I'm not going to hold it against the Bills. I mean, I know they haven't won, and it is what it is. But I'm not going to hold it against the Bills that they keep running into the Chiefs. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it happens. You see it in every sport and every great dynasty. There's a legacy in the NBA that really LeBron's legacy is not what LeBron's legacy is if he doesn't take down the Golden State Warriors one time. You know what I mean? Like
right.
That legacy is that. The thing about it is six times the 49ers have been in the NFC Championship game 4 of the last 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been marred with ups and downs and injuries and all this drama and Trey Lance and Jimmy G. No, the Chiefs just show up every year and we're like, yeah, they suck this year. They're not that great. Their wide receivers can't catch a pass. And here they are. They're in the AFC Championship game. And I know you and I have been texting back and forth, but I expect them to be in the Super Bowl because that defense is legit. And if the Ravens have been on fire, I think the Ravens are the favorite to win the Super Bowl as of this morning. But when they play the game and the Chiefs shut Lamar down, it looks a lot better for Josh Allen after that because the Ravens have been on fire. And if the Chiefs come out and shut it down, there's your answer.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's almost like you text me about, God damn it, we're doing this. You text me about the Cowboys and in the Niners game, and you're basically saying, like, one, if the Packers come out and beat you guys, it makes us look better, right? Like, it doesn't look as bad on us if you guys lose too, type thing, you know?
Right.
The Chiefs type situation with them running into it, I mean, you got to be a certain age and be watching football for a certain amount of time to watch the Patriots domination through as basically 2 decades, you know, as long as Tom Brady was playing. And there is those points with the Patriots where it's like, well, you didn't make it in because you played the Patriots. Sorry. Like, it's not your fault. It's just the Patriots. And it's almost like the same thing, right? It's not your fault. You played the Chiefs, you know, that's a team that's going to the conference championship game or they're going to the Super Bowl and then they may be winning the Super Bowl. They're winning 2 of them, right? I mean, that's kind of, and they have a good shot to do it this year again. So it's not your fault. It's almost like they have quite a few free agents: Gabe Davis, Tyrell Dodson, Leonard Floyd, Micah Hyde, Dane Jackson, Daquan Jones, Taylor Rapp, and all those guys are either starters or right behind like second string guys who play a ton as well. So quite a few free agents, 43.7 million over the cap. Stefon Diggs, we already talked about it. Potential trade candidate would save 19 million. Von Miller, trying to get off of that contract, would save 6.7 million. Tre'Davious White is obviously superstar corner, but he is coming off an Achilles injury, and he is a $16 million cap hit. So you might want to take a look at that one on what you want to do. Rasul Douglas, who they traded for earlier in the year, is going to be a $10 million cap hit. Again, it's going to be another one where they might want to take a look at what they're going to do with that, because if they cut him, they automatically save the $10 million. They don't eat any dead money or anything like that.
You know what the great thing about the NFL is that every year, all the assets are the same. Every team has the same amount of draft picks at some point, assuming they didn't trade them away, comp picks formula. They have the same amount of cap. It's all about how your GM and your front office use your assets. The Rams,
absolutely,
they traded all their assets away. They pushed in for a Super Bowl. They won. Then they sucked for a year or two. Now they're on their way back. When your GM goes out and signs an edge rusher in Von Miller to a massive contract, and then he blows his ACL out, and then he comes back and he's old, you mismanaged your assets. It's a fact of the matter. If I invested all my money in Google and you invested all your money in a weed company, and now I'm rich and you got nothing but a couple blunts laying around the house, you mismanage your assets. It just is what it is. And so to place all this blame on Josh Allen when instead of going out there and getting a legit running back or a legit player that can help. They went and got somebody they thought they were going to help, that was going to help them. It didn't. Your star
Yeah.
corner blew out his Achilles.
Yep.
It just is what it is. Mismanagement of assets, and that's why they're not. And we're not even talking about the Super Bowl here. We're talking about the AFC Championship game. They haven't even made it that far. So to me, they're a big time pretender right now until they take it the next step. I mean, the Bills, sorry, are the Cowboys of the AFC at this point. All the talent in the world, we talk about them every year like they're going to do something special. But when push comes to shove, we know where they're going to be at when the Super Bowl rolls around, and that's Cancun.
Yeah. I mean, we have to take a different look at the team if they do, to save this money, they don't sign Gabe Davis, which I don't think you really should sign Gabe Davis. I don't care what the stats say. I don't care what the yards say. You can't go you can't go three receptions for 30 yards, 3 games in a row, and then you blow up for 150. Doesn't make you, like, just because the averages average out between the 4 games doesn't mean that you're consistent, and doesn't mean that you should be re-signed. I would rather have a guy who's getting like 60, 70, yards a game and a little bit more consistent than the guy who blows up every 4th game for 100 yards and be like, oh, wow, Gabe Davis, he's showing up. We've seen it time and time again. I'm not that impressed. So if you let Gabe Davis walk, you trade Stephon Diggs. I don't know what your return is for Stephon. It has to be relatively high because of the level of player that he is. I don't know. I don't think you're doing any wide receiver swaps or sign-in swaps or anything like that. I mean, I just don't think you are. But so I don't know where you go with offensive weapons past that, because James Cook came on real well at the end of the season. He's decent. He's not a workhorse. There's very few workhorse running backs in the league anyways. But there's not a lot of weapons there. You have Dalton Kincaid, and then you have, you're trading Stephon, you're letting go Gabe Davis. Well, you have Khalil Shakir as your one at that point. Where are you at on your offensive side?
It's really not that impressive. Gabe Davis is living off of that playoff game from a couple of years ago, I think.
Oh, yeah,
in terms of what people think of him, because he shined on the big stage, obviously, in a loss. Yeah. Trading Stephon Diggs, let's say you get a first-round pick, which I don't think you do. You probably get a second, or maybe 2/3 or something. But you get a first-round pick, you're going to use that pick to try to replace Stephon Diggs. I hate that strategy. So it's just one of those things where even going into the game, I'm not so sure. And we were talking about their head coach getting fired, and they were like 6-6 or whatever. They were lackluster halfway through the season anyway, and their fired their OC. They're talking about random stat of the day. I think that, do you know that no team has the same offensive coordinator? Like every single position has changed over since 2021.
Damn. Really?
Yeah. The offensive coordinator is the most competitive position in the NFL right now. And you got to try to find somebody that works. Try to find somebody that's on one of these. This is what I would do. I would go to Mike McDaniels, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, these offenses that are rocking the league right now, and find somebody on their staff that's ready to call plays. There's got to be somebody on the Rams staff that's ready to go. There's got to be a Brian Griese on the 49ers QB coach that's ready to go. Somebody on Andy Reid's staff. You find one of these guys and try to take it to the next level. And, sometimes I watch these offenses and I just wonder, like, where is the mystique here? Like, a lot of times it's like, okay, Stephon's going deep, Gabe's going deep, and if they don't come wide open, Josh Allen's going to run. It's just, I think Josh is a baller. I know some people disagree with me, but they need to find the guy more weapons, and they need to find an offense that's more unpredictable, because right now what we see every year, it's the same old. Josh Allen tries to be Superman, and unfortunately he comes up short.
Yeah. No, I agree. Let's move off of this one. Let's shift. Let's stay in the AFC. We're going to talk about the other divisional loser here, the Houston Texans, and their offseason outlook. They should be proud. End of the day, they're not supposed to be playing the Ravens in the divisional this year. They're supposed to be the Patriots, right? They're supposed to be like 4th, pick, 5th pick, 6th pick. They're supposed to be somewhere around that. They're not supposed to be in that divisional game playing. And then on top of that, with being there, you have 8 draft picks this upcoming draft, including, you did trade your draft pick away. but it's a good thing you have a first round pick, the 23rd pick in the draft from the Cleveland trade in Deshaun Watson. So you still have a first round draft pick on top of that. 5 of those first 8 draft picks are within the first 4 rounds. So even though you made it and you got all those picks for supposed to be retooling and rebuilding, all of a sudden you're in the divisional. You come out of the divisional feeling really damn good that you're even there, that you played the game as bad as the game really was, because you take 7 points away because of a random, a punt return for a touchdown. You take that away and really nothing else happened. Regardless of what happened in the game, you're proud to even be there. Again, 5 picks in the first 4 rounds, $57.8 million in cap space. Not really a whole lot of free agents. Sheldon Rankins, Dalton Schultz, Steven Nelson, Kaimi Fairbairn, Cameron Johnston. So they have the kicker and their punter up for contract, and then Denzel Perryman there as well. So those are like their biggest starters who are going to be free agents. If Dalton Schultz doesn't want to take a smaller deal, you can move off of him. I feel like when it comes to the tight ends, you have like the top cream of the crop tight ends, and then it's everybody else kind of mixed in between, and how you use them determines how important they are. So if he doesn't want to take a deal that fits what he should make, move off of him and go get someone else. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So when you look at this team and how impressive it is that they were even there, it's pretty damn good, man. If you're the Houston Texans GM, you got to be looking at this and smiling and be like, "Damn, I'm pretty damn good for what I did." I got the 2nd pick and the 3rd pick in the draft this past season, both of them pretty damn good in this season as rookies, and I still got all this comp coming up. I'm good. That's what I would be saying.
You know who's a really good tight end?
Who's that?
That good-looking guy in Pittsburgh. Who is he?
Pat Fryermuth.
Yeah, that's it. I like that guy. Anyways, Houston, shout out to the commenter on TikTok that said I looked like the Pittsburgh Steelers tight end.
Yeah, that was funny.
The Houston Texans, man, I honestly don't have much to say about them. They get their flowers. I'm fading a little bit next year. Don't think they have the success that they had this year. It's hard when the hunters become the hunted, and people are going to be more prepared for them. But here's what I know. They got a hell of a quarterback. They got a hell of a coach. They got picks. And now all of a sudden, Houston, that is Texas. People love Texas. That's a destination. So let's see how they retool this offseason. They got a long way to go. But, they get a little better next year, and then you start looking at year 3, year 4 on that rookie contract. You load up and you make a run. So, let's see what they do in the offseason, add some pieces, and see. Realistically, they need to retool that defense, because you saw it in the second half of the game. They were just outclassed, which is okay. They didn't belong there. They weren't supposed to be there. What they did was amazing. So
absolutely,
we need to build up that defense a lot and come back next year even better and see what we can do.
Yeah, I think CJ Stroud's going to have a really hard time beating these sophomore slump allegations.
Hopefully they don't come out on the cover of Madden.
Right. I mean, you come out and you have as good as a season as you did. I mean, you look like a top. I mean, whatever, screw the rankings. You're a quarterback that very few teams would take their quarterback over you with contract involved right now. So that's what you've turned into in your rookie year. You're a quarterback that very few teams would take their own over yourself. It's going to be hard to kind of back that one up after your rookie year. If he doesn't repeat what he did, he's going to immediately be like, oh, it's a sophomore slump. It was a fluke year. And he's going to have to listen to all the stupid commenters before the season starts for year 3. And I think he'll be fine. He clearly showed enough to be fine.
Expectations are a hell of a thing, man, because there's teams out there, the Cowboys and the Bills, where they feel like shit today. They feel like they failed. And then you have teams that went home, the Cleveland Browns. You have these teams, the Houston Texans.
The Texans.
How good do the Packers feel about their team right now? They're out there. Yep. The Packers are throwing a parade in Green Bay. And that's, this upcoming week, there's 2 teams that the expectations are super, super huge for and are going to be super upset whoever loses that AFC game. And the Lions, they won 2 playoff games. Like, they're just happy to be there.
Yep.
If the 49ers aren't in the Super Bowl, that's a massive disappointment and a freaking huge letdown. And if the Baltimore Ravens or the Chiefs aren't in the Super Bowl, that's a massive disappointment and a huge letdown. So expectations are a hell of a thing, but that's why we love the NFL, right? Because of the parity every year.
Yeah.
Next year we could be talking about the Cardinals and the NFC Championship game, or I almost said the Panthers, but I want to make sure I stay a little realistic. Panthers aren't going anywhere; they suck.
Oh yeah, no, big time. And we'll talk about the Panthers and expectations and a lot of stuff when we talk about our ranking our remaining head coaching openings. Because I bet you $10 that we're probably going to have
the Chargers.
Yep, shout out to the Chargers. We'll talk about that one later. But a team that is just happy to be there. Let's talk about them. Tampa Bay Bucks. They lost as well. When Tom Brady announces his retirement this last offseason, and actually stuck with it, right? I think that's the big thing. Actually sticks with it. It was kind of assumed that probably the Bucks would not be very good. They would fall apart. They would be a 4 or 5 win team. I think that was kind of roughly the projection, was about 5-win team. But they weren't bad. They finished with a better record than they had in 2022. They won a 3rd straight NFC South title, which the division sucks. So how much stock do you really put into that? Kind of iffy there. They dominated the Eagles in the wild card round, and Baker resurrected himself. I mean, 4,044 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 94.6 passer rating throughout the year. They're not supposed to be there. So again, it's another team that should be proud of just where they are. Now, a little bit different reality when it comes to what the offseason looks like. They have a bunch of really big free agents. They do have more cap space. But the difference between a team like the Texans and a team like the Bucks, one has their quarterback under contract and is a rookie, and the other one does not. And if he gets paid by the Bucks, he's going to get paid. And real quick about Baker, dude, I think that everyone was kind of like, hey, like the Lions, everyone kind of wants to see them succeed and do well. After this whole thing of Lions fans, CJ Gardner-Johnson, all this stuff, just talking trash about Baker, it's like, bro, nobody got exposed. He still had 350 yards and what, 3 touchdowns? Like 3 touchdowns, bro. Like, no one got exposed. Like, and then the Lions fans backing that up on top of that, I've seen in comment sections, and I'm over it, bro. I don't care. I don't care about the Lions. I don't care about Dan Campbell. I don't care about the fans. I don't care about the legacy. Throw it all away, bro.
Super weird discourse that we do. It's the same thing this week. All the stuff, I haven't even been paying attention to all the stuff about Brock. The kid is what he is. Baker is what he is. Now, listen, going back to my last point, expectations are a hell of a thing. Everything was great this year because Baker wasn't making no money. If you want to give him 3 years, $100 million next year and run it back with no Mike Evans, be my guest. But the expectations change when you're making $35 million a year. So the tiniest of red flags on re-signing Baker Mayfield over there. If I was Baker, I'd be looking to go get a contract elsewhere because I'm not sure they're going to be set up to move forward with him and be successful. They barely won their division. The Saints probably should have won the division. It is what it is. You do what you can and you win a playoff game. So anytime any owner in the NFL outside of maybe 3 or 4 would tell you that hosting a home playoff game every season is a winning season for them. Now there's a couple out there that have higher expectations than that, but when you're the Bucks, you already won a Super Bowl. You get to host a playoff game this year. That's just extra money in the pocket, and they're happy as hell for that. So now if they want to run it back at 3 years, 100, or 4 years, 130 to Baker, and more power to you. I wouldn't do it, but he's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, and if if you're a team that is looking to stay successful, not be successful, like start being successful now, I don't think Baker's the best choice for you. Or excuse me, you want to stay successful, I think that's probably the best choice for you. And I think a great candidate and a great landing spot for Baker in terms of weapons, and you're already going to a more, I guess, a not losing culture. It's not a winning culture, but it's not losing, right? is the Pittsburgh Steelers are
That's
probably
what
going
I
to
was
take a
thinking.
long, hard
Yep.
look at that at Mayfield and see what they have in him and see what he wants. Right, what he wants is going to be huge this offseason. So
Especially
the
with that handsome tight end they got. That they got weapons all over the place.
other free agents, they got Levante David, they got Mike Evans, obviously Baker, Chase McLaughlin, Ryan Neal, Aaron Stinney, Antoine Winfield Jr. So they got, again, all starters. Those are all starters right there. And a couple of them are going to be big time. Mike Evans, Baker, Antoine Winfield Jr. are going to garner the most amount of money and attention, especially Antoine. He's going to reset the market. So unless you let him walk away from you, he's going to do it somewhere else. But that's going to be a lot of money tied up with just that man right there. They do have $48.7 million in cap space, and cutting a guy like Russell Gage would save them $10 million in a post June 1st cut. So you might as well, you can let him go and save that $10 million. So you're around 58.7 is what you're at for cap space. So it can get them a good distance. Now, I think they might have to choose between Baker, Mike, and Antoine. They can only keep two type thing. Depends on how much money Mike Evans wants and how much money Antoine wants. But I think you're going to have to make a decision between two out of three of those guys there to keep that core. So they do have some decisions to make. I think more than most teams, especially with how well they did this past season. Expectations are going to be a little bit higher. Like you said, Baker could potentially walk. Mike Evans is a good walk candidate. I mean, Antoine, I think, is probably a good stay candidate. I think he might get paid by the Buccaneers. I think those other two guys are they're probably going to be gone. I don't think they're going to sign. Yeah. Now, I want to rank, before we go over our predictions for the conference playoff predictions, I want to rank every potential Super Bowl matchup for this year. So we have 4 of them. So there's the Chiefs and Lions, Chiefs and Niners, Ravens, Lions, and Ravens, Niners. So starting at 4, so 4, 3, 2, 1, ranking those on how much you want to see them, right? Obviously, for you, your top 2 are obviously going to be Niners versus somebody. But in terms of what games, and this is a little bit easier for me because I don't have to be like, oh, well, the Cowboys versus the so I could be a little bit unbiased here on what games I actually want to watch. So starting at 4, my 4 is the Ravens versus the Lions. This is the game I want to see the least because I don't think this is an entertaining game, in my opinion. I think this would be a pretty easy win for the Ravens. I feel like they would run away from it, and it'd be boring. I don't want to watch a boring game, and that's what it kind of comes down to for me. So for me, the Ravens versus the Lions ranks dead last. How about you?
I'll just go from a pure, let's say I'm an NFL guy, NFL rating standpoint. Dead last is the last 2 are Detroit versus anybody. I mean, the ratings on that's going to be terrible. So yeah, if the Super Bowl is going to be a blowout and a team's going to cruise to a victory, I'd rather see Lamar and the Ravens get one than the Chiefs get another one, I guess. Which I think if the Lions make it, it's going to be a blowout either way. But yeah, honestly, the Lions have some young stars. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs does something special or Amon-Ra does something special. But we already know Amon-Ra's already on the national radar. He was an All-Pro. So
yeah,
Lions-Ravens is definitely number 4 for me.
Yeah, number 3 is going to be Chiefs versus the Niners. I don't want to see this too much.
You don't like the rematch?
It feels almost like damn near the same. The biggest piece that's different is Brock instead of Jimmy, which obviously does make a difference, right?
And no Tyreek.
And it feels relatively the same.
Fair enough.
And I'm not sure if it's enough change for the Niners to win that one. So again, I'm not saying that they would automatically lose, but that's a coin flip to me. It could be a pretty good game, but it's just like I would rather see something different if I'm going to choose. And I've seen the same, dog and pony show with that one. I'd rather move on to something else.
For me, who did the 49ers lose their last Super Bowl to?
The Chiefs, right?
Who'd they lose the one before that to? The Ravens. I'll take either one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take either one. But because it's Shanahan this time, the Chiefs 49ers is my number one, purely based off of if you were going to ask me to bet, I think the 49ers beat the Chiefs easier than they beat the Ravens. I just think that we have the tight ends to guard Kelsey, and we have a number one corner to guard Rashee Rice, I guess is their guy.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Chiefs defense is they don't have the linebackers to stop what we do. The Ravens do. Roquan and Queen. They have the linebackers to. You saw it, Brock threw 4 picks against them because he couldn't feast in the middle. So my number one matchup is 49ers Chiefs.
Okay. And then so your 3, you said whoever your bottom 2 is going to be the Lions. So Chiefs Lions would be your 3.
Yeah, I mean, if the Lions win, I'm going to put $100 on them to win the game against whoever they play because they're going to be such massive underdogs. I'll make some money if they actually do pull it out. Right. And that'll be the only thing that'll get me to watch the game and root for something. But I don't see, honestly, I don't think the Chiefs have a chance I don't think the Lions have a chance against us, assuming it doesn't freaking rain all over the place and Brock Tiny Hands Purdy can throw the ball around. But, if something happens and they make it pass, I don't think they stand a shot in the Super Bowl.
Well, my 2 is the Chiefs and Lions. They played earlier in the year. They played week 1, and it was a really good game. Obviously, a lot changes between week 1 and not only week 18, but through the wild card and through the divisional. So you're talking about 20 weeks of change there, right? That's 5 months, So you got a lot of change between week 1 and all the way in the Super Bowl. So it's even further than that. So it's, it's a long time.
Yeah.
But I still would find it relatively entertaining because it is different. And I do think it'd still probably be a relatively good game. That is my 2. Which means your 2 is what? Niners?
I have to be honest with you. It sucks that, if the Niners are in the Super Bowl, unless we go down first drive and score, and then on the very next play, whatever quarterback it is throws a pick 6 and we score again, and then we recover a fumble on the kickoff and it's 21-0, I can't enjoy the Super Bowl if we're in it. And if we're not in it because we lost in the NFC Championship game, I still can't enjoy it. So bring me back Jim Tom Sula, bring me back Chip Kelly, let the 49ers go 2-15. That way I can enjoy the playoffs again because I did not enjoy Sunday. I got an ulcer. My hair was 4 inches longer. I ripped it all out of my head. I just want to enjoy the playoffs again. And with the 49ers in them, I can't enjoy them. That's what makes the NBA playoffs so great. The Kings aren't fucking never there, so I can just enjoy them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So your 2 is going to be Ravens Niners.
Ravens Niners, and number 1 is Niners Chiefs.
Yeah, so my 1 is Ravens Niners. I think this is the most entertaining matchup. It's a rematch, obviously, from earlier in the season, and that one was not close, but like you said, it was. Brock doesn't make those same mistakes again. It doesn't repeat. The history doesn't repeat itself there. So I think it's going to be a pretty damn good game. Now, can Brock overcome and learn from the black hole in the middle that is the Ravens defense there with those linebackers and Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith? I don't know. But that's why I don't know who would win that game genuinely. And I think that's the biggest question for me. So in terms of coin flips on who would win that game or in any of these matchups, I think the Ravens, Niners, and Chiefs Niners are coin flips on who could win those games. But that's why I find the Ravens Niners so entertaining is I'm not so sure. Either one could pull out super early and it could be just a game over immediately because I don't know how much the Niners can overcome a large deficit. And I don't know how much Lamar and the Chiefs can the Lamar and the Ravens overcome a big deficit as well. So if either one of those teams get out to a big lead, it might be game over really, really early. And it doesn't have to be a huge lead. We could just talk about like a 10, 13-point lead, a touchdown and 2 field goals, and it might be game. It might be wrapped up depending on how late it is. So
can you give me like 30 seconds to a minute on your thoughts on all year, the discourse? You've been a big Brock Purdy defender, which I appreciate. Yeah. Everyone wanted to see them play from behind, win a game. The thing is, the 49ers are so freaking good. The only way that they're ever going to be playing from behind is if Brock Purdy isn't playing well.
Yeah.
So he plays, he leads the fourth quarter comeback, we win the game. Where have your thoughts gone on him? I know where I'm at as a 49ers fan, but as a staunch supporter all season, then watching the game he played against Green Bay, what are your thoughts on him currently?
They're the same. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, every quarterback has their ups and down moment. Brock just happened to have his down moment this week. I mean, we've seen very few down moments from Brock Purdy. If this is just happens to be one of the times, and the rest of the team, the Avengers on the offense and the goddamn, every other superhero on the planet on the defense, that's kind of the whole point, right? Is those guys are supposed to support Brock. Brock's not supposed to do it by himself. Every quarterback goes through it. My thoughts are still the same. Brock's a really good quarterback, and it's going to be really hard to really change that unless he has a half a season or a full season of just really, really, really sucking.
So with that, pause. Give me 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I got you.
And we're back.
Yeah. So now getting away from the ranking, the potential Super Bowl matchups, now conference playoff predictions. Let's start away from your team. Start on the AFC side, AFC Conference Championship game. We have the Ravens versus the Chiefs. Who's taking this one, in your opinion?
Chiefs? Ravens? Chiefs? What's the weather going to be like?
Well, they're playing in Baltimore, right?
I want to see what the line is. I'm curious. Because the people in Vegas, they're smarter than me because they said that the 49ers are going to win by 10 against the Packers.
Yeah.
Baltimore 3.5-point favorites.
It looks like it is supposed to rain. Has a 90% chance of rain. 46 degrees on Sunday.
Chiefs.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, the weather doesn't matter to him.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You see him in the game.
I mean, obviously, you see my reaction. I'm going with the Ravens. So
Tua looked like he was on the struggle bus against the Chiefs in that weather, and Patrick Mahomes just playing like it was 60 out there,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. But I think, why I have a hard time with that is because the Ravens are built for that type of weather.
We played the Ravens 2 years ago in the rain when the 49ers, I think they were undefeated, like 9-0 through the first 9 games of the season. We played them in the rain, and Lamar couldn't throw the ball for shit. We just kept committing penalties, and they kept just moving down the field, and he ran all over the field on us. So I don't know. I'll say the Chiefs just to pick opposite of you, but if you told me the Ravens win, I'm not surprised. I just in the biggest game with the talent being even, I go to the head coaches. Andy Reid to me is the more spearhead coach because he actually affects the game. He calls plays. Harbaugh doesn't. And who has the better quarterback? The Chiefs do. So,
yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, if you tell me that the Chiefs win the game, if I don't watch the game and you tell me, hey, Chiefs won the game on Sunday, it's the same thing. I'm not surprised as that flips over either.
It's a low key massive legacy game for Mahomes because they got all the reasons not to win. The Ravens have been kicking everybody's ass. They have all the talent. Mark Andrews is going to be back, and the Chiefs are clearly at a deficit this year. They got they've gone to a power run game with Pacheco, and they don't have a ton of weapons, proven offensive weapons. If he comes out, well, first of all, the fact that he came out and spanked Josh Allen is nice. If he comes out and takes his team back to the Super Bowl in light of us talking all season about it being a down year for him, massive legacy game for Mahomes. Now, if he loses, he has all the excuses built in, so it's okay. But because
it doesn't matter as much.
When has Mahomes ever lost this game?
He lost it against
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
Okay. Well,
he lost it against. Was it the Bengals?
6 straight
right?
AFC Championship games. I mean,
Joe Burrow, right?
Yeah.
He lost against. Yeah, that's the other one. That's another thing. I said, is this the Brady Manning type situation of our era? When we were talking about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes last week and the predictions for that, and then I saw a stat that says, well, Joe Burrow against this Manning Brady matchup is 5-1 against them. So let's calm down.
Yeah, well, Joe Burrow needs to stay healthy.
Yeah. That's
So
absolutely.
I'm a big Joe Burrow fan, but he's a sitting duck back there, and
yeah.
the longevity wise, that's not great.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you're going Chiefs, I'm going Ravens. Now shifting over to the Niners and Lions game. Both on the same boat on this one. We're both going Niners, right? You going Lions?
Can you give me a score prediction?
Oh, 28-10.
Wow. The Lions can score, bro. You think they score 10?
Yeah. Because I think with how well that your coach game plans, and as much as certain people that we know love Dan Campbell, we've seen some really horrible coaching from Dan Campbell down this stretch, like the most important stretch of the year. He's coached pretty piss poor. I mean, congratulations, you got a rah, culture changing coach. I think that's great, as much as you could take great away from it. But I think he's going to get out coached, outclassed, and I think it's going to be an embarrassment. 28-10.
The 49ers have kicked Jared Goff's ass, and that was with Sean McVay as the head coach. Now I know their OC over there in Detroit, he's going to get a head coaching job, and he wants $15 million, all that good stuff. But Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilkes got embarrassed last week. I don't care what anyone says. We got the W. That was embarrassing. Everything we were doing on offense, he can't grip the fucking football, and you're spreading it out. We're going empty backfield when you got the offense player of the year back there, and you're just going to let Purdy throw the ball 45 times when he can't. You see the slow motion video of he took his hand off the ball and he dried his hand on the towel before he threw a pass. I was like, what are we doing? Run the Wildcat. This isn't working. I just think in light of all that, as long as, if I were the Lions, I would put Amon-Ra on Ambry Thomas and just go deep every play, because you're probably going to get 300 yards and pass interference penalties. But outside of that strategy, their tight end, I don't think should be able to hurt us with Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, and Mooney Ward can follow St. Brown. And outside of that, the one thing that we haven't had in a couple of weeks is a sitting duck quarterback back there that, Nick Bosa hit the quarterback 6 times. We had the conversation about Micah Parsons needing to show up. Nick Bosa had 6 QB hits. Jordan Love moves the ball, moves around a little bit. We couldn't get him to the ground. Obviously, you saw what happened on the last play of the game, but I think this could be a 2 or 3 sack game for Nick, because Jared can't move. So
yeah, and that's the thing is when you let a guy like Fred Warner just have free reign over the middle of the field and he doesn't have to spy anybody and he has to do anything. I mean, I said the black hole of Baltimore. I mean, it's the same thing over there in San Francisco too. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Again, you give those guys free reign over the middle and just kind of being able to run around on passing downs. You're in trouble. You're taking away that whole everything in between those hashes. You're taking away completely, and it's dangerous.
The one thing about the 49ers is if you look at their defensive rankings this year, they were a top 5 team until Hufanga blew out his ACL. And then they put the rookie back in there, and the rookie came up with a game-winning interception. And then leading into this game, they're getting the rookie ready. He hadn't played in a month. He'd been injured. And they decided to go with Logan Ryan, who was on a Disney cruise in December. We pulled him off the Disney cruise to come start in the playoffs for us, even though Jair Brown was ready to go. And he was missing tackles in the open field. He had a bad coverage on the touchdown right before the 2-point conversion, the little out to the tight end. So as long as the 49ers don't do anything stupid, like Logan Ryan's not going to be on the team next year. Put Jair Brown in. Let's rock. The worst thing that can happen is Jaquiski Tartt drops a game-sealing interception and we don't go to the Super Bowl. So just don't do anything stupid. I don't need Logan Ryan out there. If somebody else breaks his leg, then fine. It is what it is. But I just think outside of the 49ers with Aaron Jones and his 3.1 yards per carry and Jordan Love less than 200 yards with all his weapons, and his offense has been historic and 21 touchdowns and 1 interception. And we largely shut them down except for self-inflicted penalties. Just play 49er football for the love of God. Set the edges. Let the defensive line do their job. Let the linebackers wreak havoc. And if they beat us straight up, then they beat us straight up. But if we play our game, I think we could be looking at 24-9 or 24-13 coming out of half, and it might
Yeah.
be wrapped up. So I don't know. I'm not nearly as confident as I was. I thought we were going to smack the Packers, and it was going to make it really sweet because I was going to talk crap to you all week. But that scared me, man. Like it. And then I'm looking at these post game locker room celebrations. The Chiefs are like, "Yeah, we just handled that ass like we do." John Harbaugh's got Jim Harbaugh in there leading chants, and the Detroit Lions are freaking out. And then you go to the 49ers locker room and look like a fucking funeral in there. So I'm not super excited, but there's just honestly. I don't know. I want Kyle Shanahan to be the coach for the 49ers for the next 15 years, and I'll never advocate not having him. But he needs to get the Steve Young monkey off his back and win the games that matter, because Andy Reid was a fraud until he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And the window has been open since 2019. We went in 2019. It's been open since then. It doesn't stay open that long for most franchises. Like, this is our best shot this year to make it happen.
Yeah,
and if it doesn't happen this year, then
interesting. Yeah, well, so we're looking at predictions of a Ravens-Niners Super Bowl matchup. If that's actually the case, I think a full in-depth prediction analysis is due for that one, because I think that's going to be easily the most entertaining game that we can have. Now, moving on to
one of them. We owe both of them one. So,
I would, and I would just love for the Niners not to make it too, because that's just my own personal biases. But anyways, let's move in some that we haven't talked about at all since the carousel started moving. And it's the head coaching carousel. So the carousel's moving, it's grooving. A couple people are on it. A couple people hopped off of it. So starting off, first things first, there have been 4 hirings, whatever you want to call them, 4 hirings for head coach positions. The Titans, the Patriots, the Raiders, and now as of an hour and 15 minutes ago-ish, now the Chargers. So let's start off with that one. So along with looking at the signing itself, I want to give a rating system. So rating between F to A+. How do you rate the signing? Not just the coach itself, but also the coach, the situation they're put in, their outlook. What grade would you give them? So starting off with the Chargers hiring Jim Harbaugh. When you look at this team, the quarterback is far and away the number one selling point there. The Chargers are projected negative $44 million in cap space. Pretty alarming. Expectations, we're talking about them, a lot higher for this team to begin with than a team like the Panthers, the Falcons, the Raiders. So it's a lot higher. Your starting point's a lot higher already. And also you're fighting against a historically poorly ran franchise with an owner that gets in his own goddamn way and gets in everyone else's way on top of that. First things first, what grade do you give this signing? And I'll give my grade as well. What grade do you give this signing? And then go in depth about it.
You just answered your own question, and I'm going to give you the only analysis needed on this. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Simple as that. This is an A+. Not because of the coach, but because Spanos finally decided to spend money. Harbaugh is expensive. His staff is expensive. The stuff that you need to keep him around is expensive. Signing Jim Harbaugh represents to the NFL that the Spanos family has finally decided to take their franchise seriously, has finally decided to spend the money it takes to become a winning franchise, all the way from your head coach, all the way down to your support staff, to your medical staff, stabbing Tyrod Taylor in the lung with the freaking needle. Everything that's been a joke about this franchise for years, Spanos basically just raised a flag that said, you know what? We've turned the corner. We're going to spend the money. We're going to do what it takes to be a legit NFL franchise. And to me, by signaling that, by spending, because Harbaugh is not easy to deal with.
For sure.
Hated him. Jed York hated Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
He is not easy to deal with. Every single franchise that signs him is at the bottom of the bottom, the low of the low, and he raises them to the top. He's a champion. He's a winner. And the fact that the Spanos family, it would be like Jerry Jones hiring Harbaugh in terms of the way Spanos tries to control this organization. It signals to the NFL that they're going to take a step back, get the hell out of the way, spend all the
Yeah.
money needed to be a successful franchise.
You know
And
what it's like bringing in Jim Harbaugh? It's like if you have your own house, right? And then you want to bring in someone else to have a roommate, but instead of just having the roommate, you like hand them over the keys and you like sign them on the lease, and now they own the house and you're there as well. Like you're co-owning it instead.
yeah,
So you're both responsible.
you're no longer renting a room to someone. You moved into the fucking room and gave the rest of the house to the guy that moved in.
Yeah,
100%.
that's what it feels like with them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this an A minus. I'm gonna drop it down. Obviously, the big thing is Jim Harbaugh, but I would agree with everything you said. Outside of, I'm still alarmed with the. I hope that they're taking it serious, because if they're taking it serious, congratulations to them. I think that's great, but I got to
The
see it
cap
to believe it.
efficiency doesn't matter if they're going to spend the money. It only matters if they're not going to spend the money. And they just
No,
sent
for
a
sure.
signal saying that they're swinging for the fences and they're going to spend the
Yeah.
money. So I agree
Yeah.
with you. If they decide not to spend the money, then this is a joke. But Harbaugh ain't going to stick around for that. I promise
for
you,
sure.
all of this is already. I guarantee you, Harbaugh's already decided who's on the cut list, who's gone, all this other stuff. And the dude is an all time. Every single player that's ever played for him loves him, and you're going to get the
Yeah, for
best
sure.
out of a Derwin James. You're going to get the best out of a Justin Herbert and all this other stuff. And frankly, shit, man, it must suck to be a Raiders fan this morning. You got Andy Reid, you got Sean Payton, you got Jim Harbaugh, and then you got a linebackers coach as your head coach. So good luck to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about them next, because I think the 2020 podcast consensus, it's an A ranking grading between the A minus and A plus. So we give an A to Jim Harbaugh, but if we're looking at the Raiders signing Antonio Pierce, you know what I've seen this compared to, because they have
NBA.
he has the players backing him so much, is I've seen the Antonio Pierce to Dan Campbell comparison a lot, because it's a motivator. It's a guy who changes the locker room culture, the attitudes. The players want to perform the best for him. They did win their 5 of the last 9 games. I think that's what's unique about this signing compared to all the other signings, is he already worked with this roster. He already knows this roster. And he's already been an interim head coach for this roster. So 5 of the last 9 games under Pierce, they won after Josh McDaniels was fired on Halloween. They were ranked 27th in points allowed per drive, weeks 1 through 8 under McDaniels, and then they ranked second under the same statistic, weeks 9 through 18. They have $36 million in cap. They hold the 13th pick in the draft, which Raiders drafting is, you can roll your eyes a million times at. They got to be some of the worst drafters up there with the Browns in history. So me personally, grading immediately, this is like a C minus, teetering D plus, but a C minus. I don't want to be too negative about it, because they were relatively 5 of the last 9. So you went 5 and 4. You picked up some of the statistics that were down. Players want to play for you. I think that's great. But with everything that was out there, and the coaches that were out there, and the candidates that were out there, and I think they only interviewed 3 guys outside of Pierce. I think they foregoed everything, and none of them were guys like Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Eric Bieniemy, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Dan Quinn. They didn't interview any of those guys, and it was pretty clear they were just going to go with Antonio Pierce. This is a C minus to me. I don't think this is great. I think Jim Harbaugh sets the tone with an A between the two of us. C minus for me on the Raiders hiring.
Yeah, gut instinct. I would give this a D, but I'm gonna raise it slightly to a C, because the last thing you want to do is hire a coach and then you have your best defensive player force a trade, your best offensive player in Devontae Adams force a trade. Personally, you say they didn't interview this person, they didn't interview that person. I don't know if they could get the interviews for this job. They got no talent. They don't have a quarterback. They're overpaying Jimmy, who's on the bench. It's not a really good position for them.
Yeah.
At the very least, they keep their players happy for the next couple of years. And the one thing I did like is Mark Davis is they hired a real GM today.
Yeah. I saw that.
What's his face from the Chargers, Telesco, and so
Yeah, Tom.
he didn't do the interim GM that he had. He got somebody in there that's ran a organization before, so I think that's good because they kind of need a makeover in the front office. But the Antonio Pierce thing to me, the one I will push back on the Dan Campbell thing a little bit because Dan Campbell calls plays. Like his first year calling plays with Jared Goff. Jared Goff had a great season. It's just obviously he made the right decision and giving the play calling duties to his OC because that dude's a baller and is getting a job. So but
I think it's just
Pierce
like
doesn't call plays.
Yeah, I just think it's the feeling and the signing at first. You know.
Yeah, I
think that's what it feels like.
He's got a very Raider mentality about him, which is great, but I think it's okay to hire a guy that might be the precursor to the guy. There's no expectations for the Raiders. I guarantee you, if we looked at the odds right now, they're going to finish last in their division. That's what's predicted.
Probably.
You know, the Broncos don't even have quarterback right now, and they're probably.
I was going to say it depends on them.
They just have the better head coach. So, I'm going to give it C because you keep the players happy, and Max Crosby is a talent, Devontae Adams is a talent. So, I don't know. It seems just like very, but who knows? Maybe they called Vrabel and Vrabel's like, no. Maybe they called Harbaugh or Belichick and they were just like, no. And personally, I don't think Dan Quinn is all that big of a. I hope the Seahawks hire him because that doesn't scare me at all. That dude is that there's nobody in the history of the NFL that gets the least amount of blame for his team not winning a Super Bowl than Dan Quinn. Somehow his offensive coordinator gets all the blame, even though it's his job at any point to hop on the headset. Hey, Kyle, let's run the ball. He doesn't get any blame for that. So he's been a defensive coordinator for a long time, and I'm cool with giving him another chance. But the Antonio Pierce thing to me is, it doesn't even register in the mindset of like anything. So I think a C is where it lives.
Okay.
If they had hired me, it would have been an F. It's really hard to get an F on a head coaching hire. But
right. Moving on to the Patriots, Gerard Mayo, former Patriot assistant coach with Bill Belichick. From the articles that I was reading, I was very, very surprised to hear people call him Bill Jr. Apparently, when he was even a player, he would be showing up same time as Bill, leaving the same time as Bill, always at the facility like Bill. Linebackers coach from 2019 to 2023 under Belichick. They have the third pick in the draft, $66 million in cap space, no quarterback, not a lot of great pieces on that team at all. And he's a defensive coach.
Is he? Do we know that?
With just his background and being a linebackers coach and whatnot.
He's got a lot of personality.
He does.
Which is funny that they compare him to Bill. He's like the opposite of Bill.
Right. I'm going to give...
Go ahead.
I'm going to give this a C+. I'm not the biggest fan of this signing.
I'm going to give it a B- for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
You couldn't let Belichick draft another quarterback because he already failed. So you had to make the change. You already get props for making that change. And they set this up. They've been talking about this dude as the precursor, the heir apparent to Bill Belichick for a couple of years. So obviously there's an internal belief in him. He's obviously shown what it takes. And so I give you a lot of credit for identifying a plan, following the plan, and seeing the plan out. Especially this has got like Pittsburgh Steelers written all over it, where this guy's going to be the coach for the next 10 or 15 years, just like Bill Belichick was. He's young. He's got a great personality. And you need something completely different. Every assistant coach of Bill Belichick's that's failed is because he's tried to go be Bill Belichick elsewhere and it hasn't worked. It's like, hey, you're an asshole. You haven't earned that. Bill has. You haven't. He's completely different. And so I give it for something different, for identifying your succession plan, for having an idea, for sticking to it. I give it a B- just because it's a winning organization. The defense is good. And frankly, if you read some of the stuff that's come out, Bill Belichick tried to move off Mac Jones 2 years ago, and they wouldn't let
Yeah.
him. So
Yep.
moving forward, now we'll see what they do with the pick. I'm not a big believer in who they got, ranked third, but
No.
I saw Rich Eisen do an interview today where he talked about could Michael Penix go undrafted, and so I just shut the interview off after he mentioned that because that's not worth any of my time. But
Yeah.
dude, come on, like. No quarterback in the history of the NFL is ever going to go undrafted again if they have any type of talent, because everyone's like, what if he's the next Brock Purdy? Just like every super kind of fat, slow moving physical wide receiver, they're going to be like, oh, is he the next Debo? Let's draft him and make him Debo Samuel. So I'm gonna give it a B- on that, just because they've set a succession plan and they've followed it through, and I give them props for having all that. And clearly, there's a strong belief in him to not even give anyone else a shot at the job.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I was very much teetering on it. There was the one that I had a lot of trouble putting an actual grade and a rating on. And now finally, the Titans signing, they signed the Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, who replaces Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons and losing his final 18 of 24 games. Callahan has 14 years of NFL experience. He's been the Bengals offensive coordinator since 2019. Been a big part of Joe Burrow's development and success, even with Jake Browning stepping in this past season when Joe Burrow got hurt too, and being relatively successful for a backup. 4-3 as a backup is pretty damn good. They have Will Levis, so they have a young quarterback who went 3-6 as a rookie, but you saw flashes of greatness from him, and I think with an offensive coordinator who could do the most with a young quarterback, I think we can maybe see a little bit more out of Will Levis. But Will Levis to me is a big project player. He always has been. He will be until that project is done. But I like this signing. I really do. This was the first one that I kind of went after, and I was kind of seeking and seeing what I would actually grade this, and I would give this a B+, A- signing. Because of the situation that the Titans are in. I don't think it's the worst situation on the planet, and how good the coach is with the experience. I think with Mike Vrabel getting fired and a lot of Titans fans asking the same question on why did Mike Vrabel get fired, I like Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel is a fan favorite among
Mike Vrabel
the coaches.
fired himself.
And yeah, so he's going to have a hard time winning over the fans if he's not extremely successful right off the jump. But I think this is a really good signing in my opinion.
How do you not wait for the playoffs to end to interview the Lions OC?
Yeah, I would.
How do you not interview the Texans OC?
Yeah,
and the 49ers have Brian Greasy and Kubiak's son actually that are getting offensive coordinator interviews.
Yeah,
In a bubble, the hiring, I like the hiring. I like going away from Vrabel, going to something complete opposite and grabbing somebody for your young quarterback. I like it. So in my mind, the hiring's a B, but I hate the process. So I'm going to knock it down to a B- because I just don't know how you can confidently say this is our guy without interviewing all the candidates. So
yeah.
I don't have any issue with him. I'm just not exactly sure. The Chargers and Harbaugh thing has been one of the worst known secrets in the NFL for like 3 weeks, right? Gerard has been talked about as the heir apparent to Bill Belichick for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
The day the season ended, Antonio Pierce, Max Crosby is like, if he's not our head coach, I want out of here. Which I don't blame him. He should want out of there anyway. But this is the only one that comes as like, the first big like surprise signing, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just don't like make. Obviously, we don't know who the GM knows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, with the Washington Commanders football team, Redskins, with them hiring Adam Peters, he was a big friend to the Golden State Warriors executive that the guy brought in to lead the search, right? So it really wasn't that surprising. The NFL is a who you know business, right? So I don't know who
For
the
sure.
Titans know that led him to that. The process to me might have been slightly flawed with the fact that there's some extremely experienced candidates out there that they didn't even speak to. So, but who knows?
For
I
sure.
mean, if they go 10-6 or 10-7 next year, and Will Levis looks like a baller, I firmly believe in getting a head coach that can go over to your young play caller and say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do to get you going. This is what we're going to do to get you going." The only team in the league right now that doesn't really have that is the Texans with D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud. But I imagine, I've obviously listened to him talk. I've never been in a meeting with him, but I imagine that D'Amico is fairly good at pumping a young player up in his
Oh yeah.
own way. So
Oh, I'm
um,
sure.
go get yourself a young play caller for your young quarterback. That's, to me, the hire is a good hire. I'm just a little curious about the process and why they wouldn't have
Yeah.
waited to talk to a couple other people.
Yeah. I understand. Totally. And still, we're on the head coaching carousel. But now, what I want to do is I want to rank the remaining head coaching jobs. So there's 4 openings right now. So 4 openings. We're going to start at 4. The worst head coach job opening, in my opinion, is the Carolina Panthers.
I agree. No further
And
analysis needed. That team sucks. Everything about it sucks.
Not bad. I mean, there's only. Yeah, it's bad. It's just bad. We're gonna have a really, we're gonna have a really hard time when we talk about like each one of these teams for the offseason and what their offseason might look like. Like, what's one person they should sign? What's one person to stay away from? What's one person they should re-sign and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna have a really hard time. I think we might both have a really hard time with the Panthers because it's like, can we really pick out just one thing
I
that
think
you
we
should
should.
do?
I think we should both run upstairs, fire up Madden, start a league of our
Mm-hmm.
own, not together, just separately with the Carolina Panthers, and do whatever we possibly can do, and then just sim each week, and we'll see who comes up with a better record. And if anyone gets better than like 6 wins, and they get a lifetime supply of Snickers bars or something, because I couldn't even begin to tell you what the hell they're going to do. They're so screwed up Shit's Creek.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I honestly, if I were them, I'd call the Detroit Lions OC, and I'd say, "Here's our checkbook, right? Whatever you want, here we go. Please do whatever you can to fix." Because if Bryce Young is a bust, that franchise is set back in a major way. They need him to be productive next year.
Yeah, and finding a coach or somebody who wants to be the head coach of that franchise is going to be tough. A couple of guys I mentioned before, Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Eric Bieniemy, are guys who might consider it.
The enemy might, for sure.
But I don't know, man. It's gonna be really tough to find a guy to take over that team
Yeah, that one's the worst by far.
easily. And then now, I mean, we're taking a step up. At least third to me is the Seattle Seahawks.
I guess I don't. I mean, I think again, they already have their head coach lined up. So
Dan Quinn, yeah, who's the top candidate.
I don't
think
know.
is
You got to go into a division with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. That doesn't seem.
yeah, and it feels like the team is. This isn't a team when it comes to head coaches. I feel like a lot of them, when you are jumping into a new position, you want to be able to have your hands on things, right? I want to be able to have cap space. I want to be able to have high draft picks. I want to have a lot of draft picks. I want to be able to make this a rebuilding process that I can rebuild in a couple of years to turn it around, 2 years, 3 years to turn this team around and go into it. This is a team that's pretty balanced in terms of age and experiences and talent at the key positions. It's good enough to be a playoff contender right now. And then like a middle of the road quarterback at Geno. The thing is, his salary cap is tight in 2024. And they do have a decent amount of draft capital, but they're missing like their second round pick this year. I'm not super sold on this head coaching spot because of how prepared they are to be a playoff contender now, and they seem very set. They're a set roster with not a lot of cap space.
And
It feels weird to me.
Who wants to be in that position where you're going to be drafting between like 15 and 23 every year? That's NFL purgatory. You don't want to be there. How are they going to upgrade a quarterback? Like
Yep.
DK Metcalf is nice. They got a young running back. That's cool.
Yep.
But how are you going to upgrade in a major way? They might be able to land Micah Parsons in free agency. That'll be nice for them. But besides,
Yeah.
sorry, besides that, how Geno Smith can't beat the 49ers. Geno Smith can't beat the Rams. Like you can't keep. I like Geno. I love what he's done with his career.
Yeah.
That's cool. You made it to the playoffs a couple times, but
Geno's really messed up that rebuilding process, huh? I mean, the best chance you had was when Russell went out the door, and then you can finish as a bottom 5 team in the league, and you can go ahead and draft your next quarterback. But Geno Smith comes in, and all of a sudden he's playing as well as he has, and Nelson, they're playoff contenders still, and it's all okay. Kind of ruined their chances a little bit at rebuilding when they had that chance, when that expectation was there when Russell left. So,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if it's Dan Quinn, maybe they do. But if they bring in a young guy, they might just move off of Geno and kind of reset it a little bit because right now they're kind of in that NFL purgatory right now. So,
is 3 the Seahawks to you, or is 3 someone else?
I think that's right. I mean, it's not a terrible place to land, but how are you going to improve the roster? I think obviously the number 1 coaching job is probably pretty easy. So the battle between 2 and 3 is just.
Is it?
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Please continue.
So I think 1 and 2 could be easily switched. I'm not sure who you have at these spots. 2 to me is the Falcons. So 2 is the Falcons. Do you have Falcons at 1, or do you have the Falcons at 2?
Number 1.
The Falcons at 1. Yeah.
Arthur Blank wants to spend so much money before he dies. Well, they already have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball. They got a young shutdown corner. Their quarterback sucks, but that's okay because you don't have to worry about now you get to upgrade the most important position, and you get to go get Kirk Cousins, or you get to go get Baker Mayfield, or you get to go get Sam Darnold, or whatever you're going to do. There's a lot, and those are all quarterbacks you don't have to sign massive contracts to, so you can kind of just pivot. It's a good place to be from a being able to move off of something really quick type of situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is, I think there's talent, a lot of talent on this team, and use a good word and pivot. Like you can almost pivot the talent to like swap it out for something a little bit better almost. The Falcons have a decent amount of cap space. It could be decent spenders this free agency if they want to. The draft capital's there. It's in a good spot. Plus an extra 3rd round draft pick from the Calvin Ridley trade. So, which looks like a pretty decent trade for them on that side for a 3rd round pick. So I like it. I think it's fine. I like the 1 spot better because it's a full rebuild spot than the Falcons are. So, and depending on who you are and what type of coach you want to be and how much control you want over your team, depends on where you want to go. If you're a guy like Bill Belichick, who's the top candidate right now for Atlanta and who's had multiple meetings with Atlanta, it's a pretty good place to go, especially since the owner's super hands off. Not super hands off. He's like middle of the road hands off. He's fine. He doesn't, not super hands on, not super hands off. He's kind of middle of the road type guy. And he's willing to hand over the keys to the Ferrari and to Bill Belichick and said, here you go. This is yours. I think it's a good spot. I think it's fine. I could switch 2 and 1 pretty easily.
Did you see the Vic Fangio news today?
I did see the Vic Fangio news. Yeah.
They say he's going to the Eagles.
Yes, I did see that. The Eagles
I'm
had
surprised
high interest
that when they announced, it's funny, when they announced that Vic Fangio was being let go, I texted my buddy Rich and I said, Chargers hiring Harbaugh today. He was like, why? I was like, because they just let Fangio go. And that's Harbaugh's defensive coordinator, Lord Fangio. But apparently he's going to the Eagles.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say the Eagles have interest.
Well, I'll let you take the reins on number 1 then, because obviously you're pretty sold there.
Yeah. So number 1, the Commanders. I think this team is has the same candidates as the Panthers. Any solid offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, Eric Bieniemy. Since Bieniemy's still, obviously he's there, is a big punch there. So Commanders have a lot of capital, thanks obviously to they suck ass. So the record sucks. So because of that, they have a high draft pick. They have the third pick in the draft, right? Second? second pick in the draft. So, and then they have midseason trades for Chase Young, Montez Sweat, which Montez, we haven't even talked about him at all. Montez looked great in Chicago. Then you have good receivers and, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. And it's going to be good support for a new quarterback, whoever comes in, probably Drake May. Defensive tackles, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen lay a good foundation on the defense. No team has more cap space this year than they do. And they don't have to spend it on a quarterback and really low expectations for success. I think whoever comes in is going to get handed the full keys, and he's going to have full control to do whatever he wants. Whatever he wants, he's going to get.
I guess my thing for that is if Jacob Taylor is out there and he's looking for the best job for him, you got the Commanders. They got all this capital. They can go get all these players. You got the Falcons. They already have all the players. Except for the quarterback. And we don't know. Drake May could be a bust. He might be great. He might not. What it really comes down to me is how are the Commanders going to be better than the Eagles and the Cowboys in the coming years? And how can the Falcons be better than the Bucks and the Saints in the coming years? And I just think the path to relevancy in the Falcons division is a lot easier. So that being said, if I was ranking it as Drew Taylor's a head coaching candidate, I would go, frankly, because I think there's some value there. I think that you can flip Kyle Pitts for a couple of different things, and you already got you got a wide receiver there. You got a dynamic running back on a rookie contract that you don't have to worry about paying. And you can't tell me that Drake May is going to be better next year than Kirk Cousins will be next year. You can't tell me that Drake May is going to be better next year than what Baker Mayfield could potentially do. He might be, but I feel bad for the rookies coming in this year because everyone's going to want Caleb to be C.J. Stroud. Everyone's going to want Drake May to be C.J. Stroud. It ain't going to happen. It's impossible. And God forbid the NFL. I know the NFL schedule. I don't know if the weeks have come out. Have the actual weeks come out yet?
No,
I know that
just the opponents.
God forbid Drake May has to play. Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys defense week 1. God, that would suck. Hopefully the NFL's smarter than that. Hopefully they put him against the Panthers or something.
Man, sometimes they're sadists and they like to do really messed up things.
Who knows? Micah Parsons may not even be on the team next year. It might be something else.
All right, man. Well, that's going to end our head coaching carousel right there, and that's going to end the NFL segment of the podcast. We haven't done an NBA segment, it feels like, in a really long time. So I'm glad to jump on this. So we're basically a little over the midway point in the NBA season now. And I want to do a couple of things. I want to do predictions for the seeding for the playoffs, the East and the West. I also want to do the mid-season award winners. Who's your mid-season award winners for MVP, Rookie of the Year, sixth man, most improved, all that stuff. And then I want to take a look at some of these trades that have happened that we haven't, one, either got to talk about, or two, we haven't talked about at all, even if we've had that opportunity. So starting off, I want to talk about the seeding predictions for the NBA playoffs. I'm going to start with the East. We would be sitting here forever if we went one at a time. So starting off with the East, I'm going to go 10-1. So 10, I'm going to go with the Hawks. The 9, I'm going to go with the Pacers. The 8, I'm going to go with the Bulls. The 7, I'm going to go with the Magic. So that's going to be our play-in. And then the top 6 is going to be Knicks, Heat, Cavs at 4, Bucks at 3, 76ers at 2, and then the Celtics at 1. Now, when I did this, this was before the Doc Rivers to the Bucks situation.
Yeah, that was weird.
That might go flip 76ers Bucks. I can flip those two pretty easily. And
wasn't that weird?
It is weird. It's strange.
I keep expecting like a sexual scandal or something.
That's what I thought too. That's immediately what I thought. Yeah, like what's his name? The Celtics coach that got in trouble.
Ime.
Yeah, Ime. I was gonna say, how do you say his goddamn name? I always forget. Keep an eye on the Cavs too, because they've won their, I think, 8 straight games now, with 2 of their top stars out. So keep an eye on them. When they come back, they might continue that trend up. And who knows, the Bucks might have a hard time meshing with a new coach and, maybe a new system that's going to come in. So keep an eye on that. They might end up taking maybe the 3 spot. So keep an eye on the Cavs. I think they could move up a little bit.
I'm not going to re-rank your rankings just for sake of time on this, but I think you're too low on the Pacers. So I'm going to bump. I don't think Pacers. I think Tyrese is going to get back healthy and he's going to gel with Siakam, just because that makes my outlook as a Kings fan terrible that he goes off to be a superstar. So I think he's going to be a little higher. I do think that the Hawks are going to move.
Murray.
What's the yes? Thank you. Thank you for saving me on that. I think they're going to move Murray, so I think they're going to drop out. I don't think that Trey has proven to be able to carry the team like that. And maybe the Raptors.
I'm not a big Trey Young guy. Just putting it out there at all. I'm an anti Trey Young guy.
Maybe the Raptors gel a little bit and they can move in there. As far as the top 4, I think Boston's really good. Unfortunately, I saw it in person this year. I think it's going to take some time, and I'm not a big believer in Doc Rivers, to be honest with you. I really think that he's underperformed everywhere that he's been as a head coach, taking it all the way back to the Lob City Clippers.
He really rode just like every other Celtic from that 2008 team, that championship. Him and everybody else rode that, huh?
Yeah, they did. As I saw a funny video of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and a couple other guys today talking about if LeBron's still top 5 in the league, and I think Kevin Garnett deep down hates Paul Pierce, like the way he was talking to him. I'm like, dang, that's that. Slow down, take it easy on the young fella right there. But
and it's funny because I don't like Paul Pierce at all, but I love Kevin Garnett, and Kevin Garnett to me is so hysterical, especially all his interviews that he does. Sometimes I find myself piss myself like laughing because he's so funny.
Yeah. For some reason, they put the Packers 49ers game on the TV in front of me, so it's distracting me. It's making me sick. So Boston at 1 feels right. 76ers at number 2 feels right. And then however you want to shake it out, I'm sure Miami will be up there. I'm sure.
And this was the pre-Terry Rozier trade too, which we'll talk about.
The Bucks will be up there. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
The NBA is so hard because it's best of 7-game series. But I mean, if we were just going to make a finals prediction right now, I mean, it would be simple. I'd go with the Nuggets and the Celtics. So, your rankings aren't to mine. I just think the Pacers are a little better. So, wrap that up.
I found the West to be a lot harder to rank. I'm not a big believer in the Magic, so I have the Magic at. The Mavericks at 10, Lakers at 9, Jazz at 8, Pelicans at 7. That rounds out the play-in tournament. I have the Kings at 6. I have the Suns at 5. That hinges a lot on everybody being healthy and playing well together.
The Suns could almost fall out. The Suns could fall out. They could go to number 2. All depend on if they could stay healthy.
And genuinely, with these next 4, I could shuffle all 4 of them and be completely happy. This one's gonna be super controversial. I have the Nuggets at 4.
Come on, bro.
I have the Thunder at 3. I have the Clippers at 2 and the Timberwolves at 1.
I don't believe in the Timberwolves at all. I don't care. I know they're playing good. I don't care. And you know the other thing about OKC is Shai is the new version of James Harden. The dude's a baller, but he just foul baits on every play. That shit doesn't play in the playoffs. And I know the seedings get us into the playoffs, but I think he's going to be pretty disappointed when he starts flailing all over the place in the playoffs and they won't give it to him like they give it to the finals. This shit honestly makes me sick. The NBA has a freaking problem. I don't know how to fix it, so I don't want to discuss it. But watching him, he's so damn talented to play the way he plays. It just makes me I disagree completely with the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets are the best team in the West. I think that I don't believe in the Timberwolves. As we get into February and March, if they're still up there, I reserve all the rights to change my mind, but I don't believe in them. I think it's the Karl-Anthony Towns and Gobert thing. I just don't think it works in the playoffs. Normally, Rudy Gobert gets played off the floor anyway in the playoffs. But again, we're not talking about the playoffs. We're talking about the seeding into the playoffs.
Why do you think the cat Rudy thing doesn't work in the playoffs specifically?
because it never has. Like that type of situation never has. But Cat, the way he's playing this year, he's never played that way before. Like he's operating at such a high level right now. I just don't expect it to continue. So if it does, then I'm wrong, and that's cool.
Well,
But as it sits today,
Cat's like one of the best big man of all time. And the
the
thing
dude,
is why I think they didn't mesh very well at the beginning, because Cat's been told to play inside this whole time and
he's
then
just
play outside
soft.
when he
And
can. No, absolutely.
he's
Like
soft.
the thing is like he was told to play inside this whole time, right? And then they get Rudy Gobert, who exclusively can only be inside. So for him to shift to be like, instead of them playing like however they want to, along with Joel Embiid's 70 points in the same night is pretty crazy.
You see the
But
Durant interview where they told him?
oh yeah, I did.
He's like
70?
70. That
Yeah,
was pretty
that was
funny.
pretty good.
You
Yeah.
know what the thing about what irritates me about the whole discussion we're having right now is that the seeding doesn't even matter. Like the
Yeah.
regular season doesn't matter. Like are you telling me that if they have the number 1 seed, but they're playing Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and everything they got, they're playing the Clippers. I'm taking the Clippers. I'm taking the Nuggets. I don't care where the seeding ends up. Like,
Yeah.
congratulations. The Kings were the 3rd seed last year. The Warriors said, hey, this is playoff basketball. Welcome to it. You don't know anything about it. And ran them off the floor. So,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just, I haven't watched much basketball outside of the Kings. I watch every Kings game. But besides that, I'm really focused on football right now for the next 3 weeks. But then, as always, February 1st hits and it's like, all right, it's NBA basketball time. So I'll have to watch a little bit more and, obviously refine my takes a little bit. That way I don't get old takes exposed or something like that.
All right, let's move on to the mid-season award winners at this point. So let's start off with the MVP. MVP at this point, there's two guys who are odds-on favorites, Jokic and Embiid. At this point in the season, who would you give the MVP award to?
Embiid.
I'd give it to Embiid. As much as I hate the Sixers and I don't like Embiid, and it's hard for me to swallow that. Yeah, I'd give it Embiid, especially if like this is like the end of the season type situation. He drops 70. You're going, okay, well, you just capped off your performance. Congratulations, here's your MVP along with the 70 points. So
I actually
yeah,
think most of these awards are pretty easy, just based off of how everything's going right now.
I think a lot of these are pretty easy as well. Then let's speed run through this one. Rookie of the Year odds. The top two guys, Chet and Victor.
Wimbiana.
You're giving it to Victor?
Yep.
I think he'll get it.
Yes, he will. I'm not saying who deserves it. I'm just telling you who's going to win it.
I would rather Chet win it. In your first full year to be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. The kid's good, man. I mean, he's really, really talented. He's like incredibly efficient. He's one of the biggest pieces for the Thunder. He's really, 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 really good on the defensive end. He's really, really good. He's really impressive. I would like to see him win over Victor, but you can't deny Victor and the numbers he's putting up and the things he's doing, and highlight after highlight after highlight. It's ridiculous, So, and then shout out to Brandon Miller, because everyone thought that dude was going to suck for the Hornets, and he's been pretty damn good. So shout out to him, because that's pretty impressive. Oh, and then shout out to Scoot too, because playing point guard in the NBA as a rookie is like one of the hardest things in the world, and he's been playing pretty well as of recent. So shout out to him.
Scoot's a beast.
Hell yeah. Sixth man of the year, Bogdanovich, and then Malik Monk are the top two guys. Who you throwing out there?
I wonder. There's actually, to me, Malik Monk, Jordan Clarkson, Tim Hardaway has been balling off the bench. And then there's another guy. There's a guy for the Pacers. I forget his name. But I mean, I'm picking Malik Monk.
Yeah.
Benedict Mathurin for the Pacers.
Yeah. No, he's cool. And he's jumped in when he's had to and played really well.
I think Malik Monk is probably a starter in the NBA, though. Like we don't start him because of the way our offense runs, but he's going to get $20 million a year next year. So
yeah, and I would agree. I don't really have a huge stake in the Sixth Man of the Year award conversation on that one, so I'm okay with that. And then defensive player of the year, who you picking on that one? Odds on favorites, Rudy Gobert.
Got to be
So
Gobert, right? I mean,
yeah, I
that
think it
team
has to
is
be.
so good defensively, which is
Yes.
funny because Cat has always been known as soft, but just
Yep.
so
And
good
now
defensively.
he's an anchor. He's solid.
And they're
I mean,
fun to
he's what
watch defensively. It's fun.
they are.
Don't get me wrong. Like I don't think it's going to continue, but like the Timberwolves are on. It's like, oh, holy! It's fun to watch. It's not like the Spurs from 10 years ago, where it's like, all right, get them off the TV. Nobody wants to watch this.
Right. And then most improved player odds to round it out. Tyrese Maxey is the top, but there's a couple of guys up there that you can make a pretty big case for. Who you going with for most improved player?
I think two guys with the name Tyrese. I think the kid from Toronto. What's his name? Who wears the long socks?
Oh, Scotty
Barnes. And there's one other guy.
Sengun.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh, he's a beast. You know what's funny is Kings fans hate me because I've been really, really I've been really harsh on Sabonis this year, and I'm like, Sengun does the same damn thing for $20 million less. He's a baller. He's baby Jokic. Yeah, I think it's probably Tyrese Maxey at this point, but we'll see how the season shakes out.
Because no one really expected. I don't know.
Do you see that interview he did where he talked about his first start and Embiid was like, hey, I need you to go for 40 tonight. And he was like, what? Me? 40? I can't score 40. It was pretty funny.
No, I didn't see that. That's pretty cool.
You see why certain teams are successful because of the culture that they have. And when your star players set the example instead of being premature divas, that's why the teams that are at the top right now are at the top, is because their star players lead by example. And Joel Embiid and Jason Tatum and Karl Anthony Towns and Ant-Man and all those other guys right now are just, and they got to figure something out because LeBron and Steph are on their way out. So unless the NBA wants to dip down to like 200, 300,000 people watching the game a night, they need to build this next level of stars. So it's good for young players like this to step up.
Yeah, for sure. And last thing is coach of the year. Front runner right now is the coach for the Thunder is front runner.
Yeah, coach for the Thunder, coach for the Timberwolves. I mean,
any of those guys in the West who aren't supposed to be like those top two guys, or two teams seeding wise, in the league right now is pretty impressive. So yeah, I would give it to either one of those guys. I'd be totally okay with.
I think what happens, the NBA does this a lot with their awards, is Chris Finch, that's his name. If he wins head coach of the year, then you give OKC Sam Presti. You give him executive of the year. Or if you give head coach of the year to OKC, then you give the Minnesota guy executive of the year. That's kind of how they normally divide it up. I think it's like going back a couple of years. The 1s and 2s for coach of the year are always the executive of the years. So,
yeah. Well, that's at we're at that 6:00 mark, so I think we're out of time now at that point, right?
Yeah. And I got to use the bathroom, so.
All right, man. Well,
hey, what's if you got transported into the Dallas Cowboys not draft room, but just front office, who is I know this is jumping the shark a little bit, but I'm starting to segue slightly. That way I have a pile of work to do. If the 49ers lose in heartbreaking fashion, I have shit to dive into right away. That's my segue plan here. What's your number one target for the Cowboys this offseason, free agency or draft wise or whatever? Is there anything you've fallen in love with yet?
No. I said that the podcast distracts me, and that's for good reason.
I'm doing anything on the Cowboys?
I'm not even watching. When I get around to like we have some free agent corners coming up and safeties, and when that comes around and I get around to looking into film for those guys for the draft, I will be a little bit more interested. I have to take a look at free agency on those like second and third level guys to see if maybe we'll take a shot at some of those guys.
I'm excited because the 49ers have a first round pick this year.
I know. I'm actually pretty excited for that too.
And now that we know that we're going to be in the top 4, it's like, shit, man, there's a safety there. There's a tackle there. I forget his name. I think he's from Arizona State. He's like 6'6", 320. There's a tackle there, and then there's also a corner. And I'm like, okay, we need a corner. Okay, we need a safety. Okay, we need an offensive tackle. I'm just like, I'm excited actually. Hopefully I don't have to worry about it for another 3 weeks. But and then hopefully when we come on the podcast, you're like, all right, let's do some draft recap. I'm just like, Niners Super Bowl. Hopefully it goes that way. But in case it doesn't, I got a load of work ready for me to segue into getting out of my heartbreak.